Hatep, Uncle Ucha Seneb, peace, love, and blessings to my sisters and brothers. I'm going to do this quick one on order out of chaos. But first, I'd like to give thanks and praise to my ancestors, teachers, and guides. Not just those here, but those also on the other side. For without you, I would not be here. Hatep. The universe is the source of all natural energy and power. It seems to have an endless supply of light and radiation. Wallace, 2012. Today's astronomers, they focus on cosmology as more of an outside aspect of existence. We have learned to explore the stars and planets, and the fact that there are objects in space that seem to orbit our world. It further appears that our world is governed by the sun, and the difference between our perception of the sun and the actual movement of the sun is we see the sun doing one thing from where we are standing on the earth. From our point of view, the sun is rising and setting. However, studies in astronomy has taught us that the earth is orbiting the sun, and the sun itself is orbiting a greater heavenly body. See, nothing is at rest. Everything is in motion, including your atoms and molecules and subatomic particles. In fact, we are in the arm of the Milky Way galaxy. The sun is orbiting a black hole or a star cluster. It's the center of our galaxy. What's even more interesting is that the star cluster is not only the center of our galaxy, but all the stars are being swallowed by this black hole that's in the center. So science is further confirming that our universe is expanding at the same time this is happening. There's a brother named Mustafa Gadala. He's got a book called Egyptian Cosmology, and he reads The Big Bang Theory, which sees creation of the universe as a physical event, was presented thousands of years ago in the Egyptian text. Therefore, the Absolute created the universe out of Nun, the cosmic ocean, Gadala 2001. So we know that the Nun represented undifferentiated energy to the ancient Cometians. And since the universe appears to be expanding, this has led scientists to develop the theory that the universe began with a bang. And this is called the Big Bang Theory. Modern astronomy would have us look out in space and see reality as objectified. We will see, however, that the ancients took a different approach in the development of their cosmology. The ancient Cometians understood the cosmos to be both outside as well as within us. To live life itself is to participate in a cosmic event. Therefore, the ancestors used divination tools that were designed to mimic patterns in nature as well as in the cosmos. Divination was and is not fortune telling. They are methods used by indigenous people that work in harmony with the universe and the cosmos and with probability. These tools are used to determine the destiny of a newborn child, or how to solve problems of the family or community issues that are to be addressed, and so on. And this is something that I also do. This is part of my craft. So people who are looking for answers, it is my job to help them find those answers through divination. But moving on. For every action, there's an equal reaction. However, the reaction seems to be the result of an interaction of forces. Much of our lives are a result of our action, and this was understood by the ancestors in the Nile Valley, as well as the surviving African traditions. So we will see that there are many stories that talk about the creation of our world. We see that they made attempts to explain the creation of the world with different aspects and pantheons of deities. A pantheon is a cosmology that shows how the deities rule over various aspects of nature. In fact, they are the forces of nature, and a major aspect of our purpose is to explore and experience existence itself. And we're here to make discoveries about the nature of reality and to see how the universe works. What separates this school of thought from mere religious concepts is that it gives us the idea that it is our responsibility to make these discoveries by tapping into our own creativity and our ability to observe. Of course, it has become common knowledge that everything around us is composed of energy. However, the way this energy is expressed comes in different forms and vibratory rates. Cosmology means the study of order. So the ancient ones have developed various cosmologies for different reasons. The main reason was to understand the workings of the universe, yet they reasoned that it was also the objective reality or aspect of the hidden reality. They made it relatable, which is why the forces of nature are personified as deities, which have been mislabeled as gods and goddesses in the West. And often this was expressed through an arrangement of pantheons where the deities were mere components of an all-pervading intelligence. And these deities were and are still utilized in story form as an attempt to explain the concepts and the activities of forces shaping events in our world and in our lives, as well as what's going to come out and take place in the lives in which we live on earth as individuals. So from the Western point of view, these systems would be labeled as monotheism, polytheism, and pantheism, and so forth. Western theologians and sociologists and anthropologists continue to view these systems with a Western bias, and they describe monotheism as the belief in one God, polytheism as a belief in many gods, and pantheism is a belief in that God, which essentially is nature. But monotheism is mostly said to describe the Abrahamic faiths, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Polytheism suggests that there are many deities to be worshipped, and at the same time, there's a Godhead or a supreme being ruling over the lesser deities and so forth. Pantheism is the belief that the deity resides within everything and expressed in different ways. Therefore, these different expressions are the variations and aspects of intelligence residing in nature. Now, a lot of African traditions is described as animism and so forth. It does not mean worship of animals. What it just means is that Africans believed that everything is imbued and can be imbued with spirit. So, from an African perspective, African alchemy deals with the concept of being able to spiritualize nature. That's basically what we're here for in that concept, in that point of view. So we're here to spiritualize matter, and we are matter that's been spiritualized. We're physical forms that contain a spirit. So we're here to see what our destiny is and fulfill our destiny. We're not here just to keep meat fresh, okay? But we're here to do our duty and figure out what it is that we wanted to do in regards of our ancestors. This is the African reason of why we're here, according to African traditions. Anyway, these are the forces and principles expressed as various deities. So we observe the concept of pantheism. We will see that in pantheism, it can be looked at in some ways as monotheism and polytheism overlapping. But keep in mind, monotheism is the belief that there's only one deity. The ancient civilizations of Kemet, Kush, Nubia, the Nile Valley, throughout Africa and Asia, we will see that the true nature of what appears to be many gods were various components of intelligent systems. These systems are all parts that function as the one and the all, and that one functions as the many. So to express this view, various pantheons were developed to understand how the universe works in the form of deities, and these ancestors developed the rites of passage in the form of initiations. And this was set up as an institution to help women and men develop to the highest functioning process, especially the men, because one of the main mysteries that women would go through is childbearing. But men had to go through different rites, okay? And they had these things set up in various societies throughout Africa and indigenous cultures around the world. The goal was the realization of God within. The indwelling intelligence, or should I say, the indwelling aspect of ourselves, that intelligence which is all perceivable, or that is perceptible within all things, within all of nature, making it accessible for people to communicate with other intelligent components in the universe. Hence, there's everything around you, but everything is connected to the spirit. So from the African perspective, you can communicate with the spirit of anything, even what appears to be an inanimate object, and it will respond. You see, because basically what's holding everything together from the African perspective is spirit, or as they now term, consciousness. So to the ancients, all things had a spiritual nature, making them accessible for humans to communicate with the spirit of that thing. This includes plants and stones. The Cometians, also known as the Egyptians, used the concept of the Neteru to describe the events taking place in the cosmos. The cosmology of Anu, or Heliopolis of ancient Kemet. Heliopolis meaning the city of the sun. It was said to be governed by the sun god Ra himself, and it would be more accurate to address Ra as the spirit of the sun. Ra is said to be the father of the Neters, embodied as the sun. So Ra also represents the life force within the human individual, within the body and so forth. And it was through cultivation of this life force energy that the Nesut Bidi, also known as the Pharaoh, became like the sun in all of its glory. And it was also the goal of the new initiate to gain a closer connection with the order of the cosmos and become like the sun and shine. Each and every one of us is to become like a sun and shine. Whenever you are on your purpose, you will begin to glow and you will begin to shine, and people will see your shine. Okay? You will feel it. You'll be able to look in the mirror and you will see it, because there's no internal resistance slowing you down because you are on your purpose. We get internal resistance when we are not on our purpose. So the individual will become like the sun to dispel the darkness by living a life of truth. And this was a way of life developed by the Egyptians themselves called Ma'at. And Ma'at represented as an African woman with wings and ostrich feather in her headband. Ma'at is law, order, justice, harmony, and she's reciprocity. So Ma'at as a way of life is for the spiritual system of cultivation. Ma'at is said to be the daughter of Ra. So to the Egyptians, or the Cometians, she played a critical role as an integral part of their cosmology. After coming into being, Ra made Ma'at his foundation. And she is the Netert, mislabeled as a goddess. But if you want to call her a goddess, you're free to do so, because I don't get caught up in making people walk on eggshells like a lot of people do. I mean, no disrespect, no offense. But I like people to feel comfortable when they're discussing things with me. So anyway, she is the Netert that helps to guide our inner development and live in truth. To the ancients, excuse me, to the ancients, this was part of self-mastery. At first, to the ancient world, in the Western mind, we say that there's this difference in how things are perceived. The Western mind, these people are believed to have been worshiping many gods and goddesses. But once understood, we see that what we believe to have been variations of gods and goddesses due to our education are more or less functions working within the universe itself, like, for instance, deities like Haru and Het-Haru, right? You're seeing them as Haru being the will, Het-Haru having to do with the arts and imagination. Yeah, deities like Het-Haru are Haru representing the fire within matter, and Het-Haru, which is also that which contains the fire. And when you look at the hieroglyphics, for Haru, you'll see a peregrine falcon, and for Het-Haru, you'll see a box with the peregrine falcon inside, representing also the mother containing that which is yet to be born, or the matter in which surrounds the spirit in which we are to be reborn as new spiritual beings through after we go through experiences as spiritual beings. So, our physical beings. So the main theme of the universe is the cyclical nature, according to Gadala. We must keep in mind that cosmology deals with the study of order, and we may conclude that it is the study of the interaction of forms in a world that functions throughout cycles. We also see how the universe, the energy of the universe, goes from being the subtlest to the grossest, and the shaping of matter into form through sound. And this interaction is energy coming into form as well as energy leaving form. Sound is responsible for the shaping unformed matter into geometric proportions. In fact, the word universe, like I said before, also can be divided into uni, which is one, in verse. And the universe, in this case, is made up of the songs of the cosmos. Parts of the universe is constantly breaking itself down, while other parts is constantly building itself up. Even those who may seem to be chaotic, it is not necessarily random. Situations and events happen, but nothing is actually random. Everything happens for a reason when it comes to spiritual perception. The word universe also means turn into one, or one turn. So while on earth, humans go through interacting with the form as a life form. Various traditional cosmologies around the world point out how life goes through fluctuations and how there's a cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth. And many of times this process is identified with the four elements, and there's a similar process taking place in the various forms of divination throughout Africa and throughout the world. And to study divination and cosmology is to eventually become more aware and see methods how things correspond. This is where it becomes even more necessary to understand cosmology. By observing cosmology, like for instance the Yoruba and the divination system all the way down to OB, we see that it corresponds to the cosmology of the different phases of the sun. And in the Kemetic traditions, there are 5 ages. In the age of Khepra, Ra, Un, Aten, and Amen, according to the Amenites and those who keep that tradition. And we can also see the correspondence with the 5 Obi patterns and the 5 ages expressed to the Cometians, or the 4 ages. So due to the bias of modern academia, we're trained to pretend that universes and civilizations remain isolated from one another, even if they coexisted for thousands of years, and there's evidence of the interaction between ancient civilizations due to the artifacts, relics, and paraphernalia found in different regions of the ancient world. So, undisputed evidence shows that there's an interaction in ancient Egypt because of the recovery of Chinese bottles within some of the ruins. Gadala makes note of these in his works called This Historical Deception. He also states the following, and it said, it is worth noting that the older statues of Buddha bear a striking resemblance to those of Amun. So where there is contacts between ancient Egypt and civilization of China, I believe there is, or believe there was. Notice how I speak as past, present, and future all interacting at once. Because from the ancient Cometian standpoint, past, present, and future is all taking place at the same time. That's why I say that I am yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and no mortal sees beyond my veil. Because it is the mortal that deals with the finite. It is those who identify with the spirit that are and where we see the simultaneity of past, present, and future. Years ago, one of my elders in the Kemetic tradition encouraged me to study Chinese cosmology based on the works of Mantak Chia, and he wanted me to see for myself that the Chinese cosmology paralleled Egyptian cosmology. Another elder went as far as to tell me that the Chinese still had the system used by the ancient Egyptians, and that's why earlier I also made the comparison to the Memphite theology with the 4 pairs of energies that help shape and create the universe, and the 8 immortals, or the 8 trigrams in the I Ching, because ultimately it's based on the same principles. So this led me to look into Taoism and Chinese medicine, which is based on Taoist philosophy. And there's a book entitled The Secret Teachings of the Tao Te Ching, pronounced Tao Te Ching, co-written by Mantak Chia and Dao Hong. And it says something quite interesting. It says, since being and non-being give birth to each other, difficult and ease complete one another. Long and short measure each other. High and low flow into each other. So this is the translation of an ancient text that is telling its students about the nature of yin, negative, and yang, positive. The 5 elements of Chinese philosophy arise from the interplay of these 2 forces, and we will see that the Chinese deal with a cosmological methodology and the utilization of the 5 elements, which is fire, earth, metal, water, and wood, which corresponds with earth, wind, fire, water, and ether. That's of the Western traditions. So we also see that these 5 elements exist throughout Africa in a Dogon and a Bambara. And a lot of people may be familiar with Western occult, which is based off the Greek philosophical thought in Platonic and Aristotelian teachings as well. Anyway, they call this the 4th or the 5th element of the Aristotle and so forth. But he did not invent that. We also see that these elements within the West African system of the Dogon. The word of ether is a very interesting word because it's talking about something that is all-pervading, kind of like the Akashic realm or the Akasha. In the Indian tradition, you have earth, wind, fire, water, and Akasha. Akasha is like the glue or the quintessence that hold all 5 or 4 of these elements together, aka the 5th element. But we look back at the word universe and we see that it also means turned into one. And we observe the universe, we see that there is a constant cycle and recycling, a complex of processes within processes, stages within stages, and in many religious belief systems, stages within ages. In India, they call these yugas. So one well-known example in the Hindu tradition is the Sanatana Dharma or Sanatana Dharma, right? It contains a teaching that explains the 4 ages. The current age that we live in, some people say we're in the Kali Yuga. The Kali Yuga is said to be the age of much corruption, materialism, and greed. A devotee also learns that one can overcome the mental and spiritual bondage through the practice of yoga and various forms of meditation and intellectual studies and diet and so forth. The interesting thing about Hatha Yoga is that its devotees and practitioners get into poses that mimic nature. More on this later. This system is well known and it is growing increasingly popular by the day. And it is also important to note that the Sanatana Dharma is not only a culture that carries the belief, or the only culture that carries such a belief and understanding of this process. However, that particular system is known for its yoga and its many deities, gurus, and swamis, and so forth. In India, you will also find some of the texts that contain knowledge of the ancient world. Nevertheless, it seems that we must be constantly reminded that the ancient world was interactive very much as it is today. Whether or not the ancients had the same methods of transportation, archaeological findings show us that humans never stayed put in one place, and various human societies of the ancient world spread, and they traded, shared ideas, intermarried, and at times went to war. And there's much evidence that points to a time when humanity shared an advanced global civilization. Unfortunately, due to wars and religious zealotry, catastrophes, and selfishness of individuals who wanted to remain in power, much of this knowledge has been lost, destroyed, hidden, and buried. And this means that there's a very limited access for a long time of who would have this information, and probably the vast bodies of knowledge about our origin still have yet to be uncovered. Perhaps it simply has yet to be rediscovered. However, the information that is available to us suggests that human civilizations always reach a high point, decline to a middle point, and sink to a low point. Then the process seems to start over. The ancients saw this as cyclical and understood that the nature of being in regards to time and space was an ongoing cycle that takes place throughout the universe itself, because we live in a universe of constant flux. Energy is not allowed to remain stagnant. Energy must constantly be in circulation. Without the dynamic of such, there could be no life in our universe. The constant circulation produces the friction that is necessary to produce the heat in various degrees. Things heat up and burn out. The ongoing cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth is a process that remains and maintains the balance that keeps things from becoming overcrowded and therefore stagnant. The Netaru or Interu are the forces of Neter or Inter, which make the world go round, so to speak. They are the forces of nature that govern the miniature universe in the image of God within the human being. Godala 2001. So as the universe expands, it also sustains the various life forms, moments, and movements in space, which is necessary for different expressions of beings to manifest. It is becoming apparent that more and more science is beginning to agree with the teachings of the ancients. And one of the most universal maxims is the law of correspondence, becoming more and more known to the public and to the people in general, as above, so below. So in the greater cosmos, everything we find in a large quantity and of a large size, we also find of a smaller quality and a smaller size. The holographic model of the universe being a hologram because each part contains the whole. It suggests that each part of our reality is reflected within itself and recalled into what we call fractals, which are smaller versions and self-similar parts of the same thing. It has to also be understood that each and every part has its own unique quality about it, which connects it to the rest of totality. However, every entity in existence functions as a unique expression. Now science is beginning to admit that they don't truly know the real nature of life. They're only beginning to scratch the surface of quantum physics. Scientists and physicists have come to understand that an atom is 99.9% of empty space. Matter is but energy solidified and slowed down. However, matter, as solid as it may appear, is anything else but so. The ancient Cometians had a concept called Ma'at, and understanding Ma'at is key to getting an idea of ancient Egyptian Cometian cosmology. Ma'at basically means order, and it is said that the deities themselves came into existence by decree of Ma'at. It is also said that the sun god Ra established Ma'at as his very foundation, and it was the key of principle necessary for Ra to bring himself into manifestation. The ancient literature of Egypt suggests that Ra began as Khepra, and Khepra means becoming. It means to become, the initial process of movement, which produces heat. Not to mention that sound also helps to cause movement, which in turn generates heat. The shaping forces of creation brought forth both living beings and non-living things into existence via this process. In ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, the words of Ra revealed through Tahuti became the things and creatures of this world. The words, meaning sound waves, created the forms in the universe. Gadala, 2001. The Cometians also saw that humans who are the children of the Neteru share some of their abilities to a lesser degree. One example was the ability to create a changed reality with their utterances. A Neter is a sentient force that shapes creation. Ma'at, Ra, and Khepra are all aspects of divinity that we call Neteru. The ancient Egyptians came up with this concept of Neter to convey their idea of the forces of nature. The ancient Cometians understood that all things were and are interconnected. The Egyptians believed that one must live in harmony with Ma'at to have a true harmonious connection with the divine. When we look at Ma'at's cosmic order, we see not only did the Cometians consider Ma'at to be the foundation of how the universe functioned, but also a code of conduct. In other words, human existence was about living in harmony with the natural order of things and achieving higher levels of being and doing things that are pleasing to a higher intelligence, that is, an intelligence higher than our own. The access to this higher intelligence demanded a lifestyle of harmony with the forces of nature, and it must be noted that to the ancient Cometians, everything has spirit. Everything in existence was provided with consciousness. Spirit was the mystery to communicating with plants, animals, and inanimate objects. To the ancient Cometians, inanimate objects were imbued with consciousness. This is not too different in comparison to modern quantum physics. In today's world, modern quantum physics suggests that consciousness pervades creation and that the consciousness can be found in all things, all the way down to the level of subatomic particles. In fact, a new theory has developed suggesting that subatomic particles themselves can make decisions. Did the Cometians believe that the human body was in the image of the cosmos itself? If so, this would explain why they constructed their temples the way they did. Temples and even cities laid out based on the configurations of the human body. Basically, every human being is an embodiment of divine cosmic order. However, due to our forgetfulness of our true nature, we fall out of harmony with such divine order. We can observe some of the ideas in a text called the Egyptian Book of the Dead, aka the Pertem Heruim Ger, the pyramid text, and so forth. The Egyptians, Cometians, also had various theological schools of thought. One of the most popular theological schools was that of Anu, also known as Heliopolis. The Great or Grand Enid, or the group of the nine Neteru, who identified as Anu or with Anu, even though they was recognized throughout ancient Kemet. In this cosmology, we see that Atum, the primordial fire, gave birth to Shu, Yang, and Tefnut, Yin. Shu and Tefnut gave birth to Geb, Earth, and Nut gave birth to the sky. So, this union of Nut and Geb would give birth to Asar, Set, and Nebetet. The unique position of the Cometian scheme of creation is different from many other indigenous cultures, where the sky is male and the earth is female. It was the opposite with the Cometian cosmology, where the goddess Nut was the daughter of Shu and Tefnut and the wife of Seb. The earth god, or deity, was a male deity, and the mother of Asar, and Aset, Nebetet. She was the personification of the heavens and the sky, so it was flipped. But the Cometians also identified her with the Milky Way itself. The ancients believed that all life was birthed from the womb of creation in many ways. The temples we see images of Nut giving birth to the sun and moon and swallowing them back up. This is an understanding of the cyclical nature of our universe. In the Memphite theology, the Commission spoke about the Neter Ptah, who is said to have laid out the foundations with an iron slab. And the text also informs us that his wife Sekhmet, she is the force of fire and heat that aids Ptah as he forges the metals of creation. It is Sekhmet who transforms his iron into molten liquid, and Nefertum represents the finished product, the harmony that's brought between the two. And it is Nefertum, whose name means something like the harmonious one who is complete, or the complete harmonious one. Nefertum is depicted as emerging from the lotus, and the lotus representing the unfolding of consciousness as well as expansion of existence. It was also believed that the fire, which was sacred to Sekhmet, worked at the shaping force in creation. We see this force acting throughout the universe. Without the fire of creation, there is no life fire. Ra is the cosmic fire of life that resided within Nu, the watery abyss, aka undifferentiated energy, and Ra comes into manifestation in the form of a birth, in which he is born from Nu. Ra gives birth to Shu and Tefnut, and they are the principles of heat and moisture, and this is the Yang positive and Yin negative aspects of the functions throughout the universe. It is also must be kept in mind that the ancient Commissions Egypt come from the Greek word Egyptos, which is the corruption of Het Ka Ptah, the house of the spirit of Ptah, and this deals with the principle of expansion. So in ancient Commission culture, we look at the Neter Ptah, who is not only the opener, but the one who brings forth expansion of the whole cosmos. We deal with the principle of heat. We must also deal with the principle of expansion from the Kemetic point of view. Life is an ongoing expanding process, which eventually reaches the point where there is a contraction in certain areas of the overall expanding universe. Overall, the Most High Supreme Being was said to be in a constant state of expansion, and there are micro-processes of living systems and organisms that are also going through the process of life, birth, death, and rebirth. This idea is embodied in the story of Osar. Osar not only deals with the concept of the divine ancestor, Osar also represents the carbon-nitrogen cycle when it comes to plants and vegetation. When observing the hieroglyphic symbol for the name Osar, we see the throne above the eye. This is meant to tell us that consciousness pervades matter, symbolized as the seat. And the seat is also symbolic to Aset or Isis. And this hints that there can be no Asar as a ruler without the queen, Aset, Isis. The male energy cannot exist without the female energy. And in fact, it is the female energy that gives birth to both male and female. So Aset is the throne that legitimizes the king. But keep in mind, there also has to be the male energy. Okay, so in order for this universe to function, both must be present. Let's keep that in mind, because a bird does not fly straight with just one wing. There's always balance, harmony, divine order. The throne upon the head of Aset is often depicted as blue, and this shows that she also represents the water element from which all creation is said to have emerged. This echoes the idea that Ra emerged from the Nun, the watery abyss. Creation emerges from the primordial waters like Ra. We too emerge from the amniotic fluid. This reflects the universe being born from the cosmic waters. Well, my sisters and brothers, we're going to talk some more about universal order as time goes on. I'd like to thank all those who were able to view this particular video. May peace and blessings be upon you, your family. May you have a wonderful and productive time of your life. May you receive wealth and prosperity. May you be blessed. I give thanks and praise to the Most High. I give thanks and praise to Ra Nebuchadnezzar. I give thanks and praise to all the Neteru. I give thanks and praise to all the Orishas, all the Loas, all the Voduns, all the ancestors and spirit guides. Hatep, Ankh Uchasenel.